Why do you feel that the older generations look down on the younger generations for their thoughts and ideologies?
That's a very good question. Good evening and good to see you. I think that it's a lack of understanding. There's always going to be a degree of lack of understanding between different generations. There's nothing new there. I think that we're seeing a very rapid pace of change at the moment, but internationally, not just in the UK, in terms of what young people are feeling very sort of passionately about. And the new language around equality and diversity has emerged very, very quickly, which the older generation are finding harder, I think, to understand and come to terms with, which is why words such as wokeness, for example, or woke, have tended to be distorted and perhaps misunderstood in how they're being used.
But is there potentially a limit to some of these novel ideologies, let's call them, in terms of there's a lot of parents out there who are concerned when people are talking a lot about gender self-identification, for example, to young people at a young age and the effect that's having on children? Or are these topics that they might make someone of my age feel uncomfortable or my parents' age feel uncomfortable, but these conversations should be happening?
I think these are uncomfortable conversations. They're certainly different conversations, certainly to those that we had as we were growing up. But I think the fact of the matter is the world is changing and society is changing, and we can't ignore that. What we have to do, I think, as the old generation, is we have to understand where young people are coming from. And I think if we take the time to understand the language and understand the motivations behind what it is they're calling for, then actually we can support them far better. I think if we end up being in conflict with them through a lack of understanding, that's actually when we're going to see more problems.
Though, for adults to mediate in some of these things. I mean, for example, when we talk about certain movements and activism, certainly across the Atlantic, they seem to be extremely polarising, perhaps when played out through the very divisive realms of social media. And, there are potentially other examples where young people are getting concerned at a very young age about issues of identity politics that, people of my age didn't have to worry about. And perhaps that could be having a deleterious effect on their mental well-being.
Yeah, so I think that's where I think our role as educators is so important, because we have to be having conversations with young people about some of these issues from a young age, and obviously sort of making it age appropriate, particularly if you think about all of the context around relationships and positive relationships, which has been prevalent over the last 12 months. But I think that the more that we are sort of guiding young people to have sensible conversations and sensible debate, and also to learn to be able to listen to different viewpoints, then actually the better outcomes that we can have. I think that if as school leaders we're ignoring it and we're not addressing it, then actually we are going to be in a situation where there's a considerable amount of misunderstanding.
Do you ever have the feeling that perhaps at the moment in, year 2021, we're rushing young people to have very adult thoughts and ideas and discussions, and that potentially that sort of innocence of childhood is being sacrificed on the altar of adult ultra-liberalisation?
Well, I think what's interesting is actually this is being driven by the teenage generation. It's not actually being driven by adults. And I think that what we have to do is that we have to respond to that, and then we have to, in an age-appropriate way, we have to provide the framework to enable them to be able to generate the level of understanding that they need if they want to be able to implement the changes that they're wanting. I've been in education for 25 years, and in terms of a generation, this generation have got far more momentum and conviction about the way that they would like to see society evolve as they emerge into adulthood, and we simply can't ignore that.
We mustn't ignore it. Is there a risk that perhaps we give them too many authorial credits over the way society should develop? Because at the end of the day, they are minors. They haven't lived and experienced things in the same way that adults have, and therefore aren't necessarily the best equipped at making big decisions like that.
Well, I think that's where we need to educate them. We need to make sure that they are informed. We need to ensure that our curriculum is giving them enough balance to be able to understand the context of where we've come from as a society, so that they are in a position in an informed way to be able to take the decisions that they need to. I mean, if you take sort of topics such as climate change, they are inheriting the climate. They have got to take responsibility for the goals that we have set. COP26, for example, we've got to looking for net zero for 2050. They're the ones who are going to have to take this forwards. So therefore, we've got to equip them and give them the confidence to be able to do this.